Moving to a new city was transformative for me. I threw myself into my work, made new friends, and started rebuilding my confidence. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was living for myself instead of comparing my life to someone else's. I even started dating again, though nothing felt serious. The scars from my relationship with Lisa were still healing, but I was finally beginning to feel whole again. Fast forward a few years. Out of the blue, I got a message from Lisa. It was brief but jarring. "Hey, I hope you're doing well. I'd love to catch up sometime. Let me know if you're free." Reading it, my heart skipped a beat. I hadn't heard from her in years, and the last I knew, she was happily married to the family friend she'd started dating after our breakup. Why now? Curiosity gnawed at me, but so did a lingering sense of self-preservation. Part of me wanted to respond to hear her voice, to know what she wanted, but another part of me was cautious. I'd spent years trying to move on from the pain of losing her, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to open that door again. I left her message unread for a few days, mulling over my options. Finally, I confided in a close friend, Jake, who'd been with me through the aftermath of our breakup. Jake didn't mince words. "Dude, what could she possibly want? She's married. Don't fall into that trap." He had a point, but I couldn't help feeling conflicted. What if she needed help? What if she was in trouble? Against my better judgment, I decided to reply, keeping it polite but distant. "Hey Lisa, I'm doing well. Hope you're good too. What's up?" Her response came quickly, almost too quickly, as if she'd been waiting for it. She wanted to talk, just a casual conversation, she insisted. I agreed to a phone call. Part of me felt like I owed her at least that much after all we'd been through. When she called, her voice was as warm and familiar as I remembered, but there was a nervousness to it that caught me off guard. After some small talk, she dropped the bombshell. "I'm not sure if you've heard, but my marriage is over." Her words hung in the air, heavy and complicated. I didn't know what to say, so I stayed silent, letting her continue. She explained that her husband had been unfaithful, and their seemingly perfect life had crumbled. Now, she was trying to piece herself back together. I felt a pang of sympathy for her. No one deserves to go through that kind of betrayal. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore the irony. Lisa had left me because she wanted a life I couldn't provide, and now that life had let her down in the most devastating way. She admitted that she'd been thinking about me a lot lately. "I've been reflecting on everything," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "And I realized that I might have made a mistake. You were always so good to me, and I didn't appreciate it at the time." Hearing those words stirred up a whirlwind of emotions: hurt, anger, nostalgia, and, surprisingly, a flicker of hope. But that hope was quickly overshadowed by a hard truth. I wasn't the same person I was back then. I'd spent years rebuilding my self-esteem and learning to value myself, and I wasn't about to jeopardize that progress by diving back into a relationship that had already proven toxic for me. I thanked her for her honesty, but told her I needed time to process everything. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at my phone. Part of me wanted to believe that we could start fresh, that maybe this was some kind of second chance. But another part of me, probably the wiser part, knew that going back wasn't the answer. Over the next few weeks, Lisa kept reaching out. She sent me messages reminiscing about our time together and even suggested meeting in person. I kept my responses short and non-committal. My hesitation wasn't out of spite, it was out of self-preservation. I'd worked so hard to get to a place where I was happy and secure, and I wasn't willing to risk losing that. Eventually, I stopped replying altogether. It felt cruel, but I didn't know what else to do. I wasn't ready to rekindle anything with Lisa, and I didn't want to give her false hope. Ignoring her messages felt like the only way to protect both of us from more pain. That's where the conflict with my friends began. Jake supported my decision, but others weren't so sure. Maybe she really has changed, one friend argued. What if she's the one who got away? Another friend accused me of being cold-hearted. She's clearly struggling, and you're just shutting her out. That's not fair. Their words stung, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was doing the right thing. Lisa's reappearance in my life had opened old wounds, but it also reminded me of how far I'd come. I wasn't the same person she'd broken up with all those years ago, and I wasn't interested in revisiting that chapter of my life. Still, the doubts linger. Am I being too harsh? Should I give her a chance to prove she's changed? Or am I right to protect myself from the potential fallout of reopening old wounds? For now, I've chosen to keep my distance. Maybe that makes me the bad guy in this story, but I've learned the hard way that sometimes self-preservation has to come first. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing. I've worked too hard to find peace in my life, and I'm not willing to lose it for someone who didn't see my worth the first time around. Am I wrong? Or is this the price of moving on? The call from the past in the years that followed my breakup with Lisa. Life moved on as it always does. I poured my energy into my career, climbing the ladder and finding fulfillment in my work. While I went on a few dates here and there, none of them ever blossomed into anything serious. I wasn't actively looking for love. I was content with my own company and the stability I had built. Lisa, on the other hand, seemed to find what she was looking for. Through mutual friends, I learned she had gotten engaged and later married. I wasn't invited to the wedding, not that I expected to be. By then, our lives had veered so far apart that we were little more than strangers who once shared a deep connection. When I heard the news, a strange cocktail of emotions surfaced. Genuine happiness for her, a touch of sadness for what we had lost, and oddly enough, a sense of relief. She had moved on, and in doing so, allowed me to move forward too, or so I thought. The unexpected call 3 weeks ago, while I was immersed in work, my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. My first instinct was to ignore it, but something compelled me to pick up. "Hey, it's Lisa," the voice on the other end said. It felt like time stopped. Hearing her voice again after so many years threw me off balance. She sounded bright and cheerful, as if no time had passed since our last conversation. She explained that she'd been thinking about me recently and decided to reach out. For the next 20 minutes, we caught up on life. Lisa told me about her new house, how busy she had been, and a few other details about her married life. I shared bits about my career, my move to a new city, and how I was doing in general. At the time, it felt innocent, just two old friends catching up. But as the days passed, her outreach became more frequent. Nostalgia or something else? Lisa began texting me daily. At first, it was lighthearted, a funny meme, a photo of her house, or a TikTok she thought I'd like. Then came the calls. She'd ring me while driving, saying she had some free time and thought it'd be nice to chat. Initially, I brushed it off. Maybe she was just feeling nostalgic or missed having old friends in her life. But the frequency of her messages started to feel off. She was married now. Shouldn't her husband be the one she turned to for these everyday conversations? I couldn't help but question her motives. Was she unhappy in her marriage? Lonely? Or was this all just innocent reconnecting blown out of proportion by my overthinking? Drawing the line last Friday, things came to a head. After another round of messages from Lisa, I decided it was time to address the situation directly. I messaged her, explaining that our frequent communication didn't feel appropriate, given that she was married. She responded almost immediately, insisting there was no harm in us staying in touch. "We've always been good friends," she wrote. "Why should that change now?" Her words didn't sit well with me. Sure, occasional messages might have been fine, but this level of communication crossed a line. It wasn't fair to her husband, and it wasn't fair to me. I told Lisa we needed to stop talking for a while. I explained that I needed to focus on my life and that our frequent interactions were creating unnecessary complications. Then I blocked her number. The fallout, I thought that would be the end of it. But I was wrong. Not long after, Lisa called one of our mutual friends, Jess, crying about how rude I had been for cutting her off. Jess, in turn, told our other friends, and soon I started receiving a barrage of calls and messages. "Lisa just wants to be friends," they said. "You didn't have to block her like that." Their words stung, but they didn't see the full picture. Lisa's actions weren't just about reconnecting. This wasn't a casual friendship rekindled, it was something deeper, something that blurred the boundaries of respect for her marriage. I tried to explain my perspective, but most of them didn't understand. To them, I had overreacted, burned a bridge unnecessarily. Wrestling with guilt despite standing firm in my decision, guilt began to creep in. Lisa wasn't just some acquaintance. She was someone I had once cared for deeply. Blocking her felt harsh, even if it was necessary. I replayed our last conversations in my head, wondering if there had been a gentler way to set those boundaries. Could I have explained things better? Or had I done the only thing I could to protect myself and respect her marriage? Closure and moving forward sometimes. Doing the right thing doesn't feel good, it just feels necessary. I acted not out of anger or resentment, but out of a desire to maintain healthy boundaries. Lisa's behavior, whether intentional or not, wasn't fair to her husband, and it wasn't fair to me. I may never get full closure from this situation. Friendships, like relationships, can end in messy, unresolved ways. But as I reflect on everything, I know this. It's better to walk away with your self-respect intact than to stay in a situation that compromises your values. Life is about moving forward, not clinging to the past. And while I'll always wish Lisa the best, her chapter in my story has come to an end.